PT establish a reason why you generally cannot work late early on at a new job. Maybe you have to pick up kids from school daycare, maybe you have an elderly relative you care for in the evenings, perhaps night school or a second job. Figure out what's gonna play and they are going to sympathize with respect and establish it from day one. Employers are less likely to get pissy about you being unavailable if they have never considered you an option for staying late. I can't work beyond my scheduled 9-5 hours. That's a complete sentence. Is this some American thing I'm too European to understand? Unless I'm being paid for the extra time, I'm working my set hours. And even then it's entirely my decision. This also involves not replying to things after hours. For as long as possible. Even if people know about your obligations, they'll still try to push the boundary if it means less work for them. Because I don't want to? I agree, set the standard, but you don't have to explain yourself. As a manager, also set the standard for your team that you don't want them working extra hours. Contract says 40 hours, I work 40 hours, you want more time, you ask me and tell me why, and you pay for the extra time with a premium. It's not in my contract. I'm not doing it. No. There you go, 3 reasons without having to make up any nonsense excuses. Dependent on the job, I wouldn't worry about setting boundaries so much, that's literally what your contract is for. Just be firm and say no, that's what they do if the foot was on the other boot. Obviously there is exceptions to this, and some smaller places have a more give and take way of working where you don't mind so much. Never assume they will sympathize, big mistake. But you should let it be known before you accept the job, or if life changes, well in advance, which makes it harder in HR to justify changes to your employment. I've worked with some good or decent bosses and really assholes. Or you can just tell them your availability and stick to it, like an adult. If they tried to schedule me for shift outside what I gave them when I started, I just didn't show up, and when they called me I'd say, you know, I'm not available to work then, check my paperwork. I just say I'm going home. If a job needs me to lie about having kids or something to actually be able to leave on time, I'll pass on it. Oh, I've got the perfect answer. No, I'm gonna go home. In my job's eyes, I have had a young baby now that requires me to leave on time and not do a lot of travel, for several years. I do not have kids. I never minded staying late because I didn't have kids, and I got paid hourly. Staying late just meant I got more pay. My favorite was when they'd ask me to do a double on holidays. Yes please dollar. I just ask if it is overtime, then they have to pay me extra. They don't want to do that, so usually things are suddenly not that urgent after all. Maybe you just don't believe in working long hours. Hello Peter, what's happening? How about I just don't fucking want to, and that wasn't in the expectations when I signed up for this job. Nobody should be working more than their expected workday with the exception of a few emergency jobs. Setting the expectations to your employer that you totally would if only you could, only makes it more likely they'll pressure someone else with a less viable excuse into doing it instead. This is really good advice. I never did this and would constantly be taken advantage of, staying late, taking on extra duty, etc., but at my last office job, I told them that I could never work past 5 because I had to get the kids. It felt so good knowing I was out at 5. I did feel guilty at times when I really had nothing to do, which, honestly, were most times because my wife worked from home and could pick the kids up anytime, but I stuck to my 5 o'clock hard stop. Have no context for the age and job of the poster, so it would be a waste of time to respond. However, as an employee manager of staff, I'd likely touch upon one's flexibility around hours and expectations during the hiring process so that I was providing a job candidate with realistic expectations around such. Otherwise, I'm letting the rest of my team down. P.S. I'm part of that team, which means I also share the burden when required. I was pretty vocal about being a retail manager before I got this new job. They all know I am used to being overworked and staying late. No one has said anything yet. I am usually still one of the last to leave since everyone else leaves early every day. Just be straight from the get-go. No need for cloaks and daggers, it's just going to harm your reputation in the long run. Just state that you do not work late. Work your hours and go home. You have a life outside of work. Also, even if you don't have kids, find another excuse. Not everyone has them, but those who don't shouldn't be penalized by their work for not having them. Agree with this. Also, probably more applicable to professional jobs, for one-off items, you don't have to provide a rationale for why you're missing work or leaving early or late. Just say you have an private appointment and don't offer more. Generally people won't ask. I'm sorry, I need to get home and cook dinner. I love working a late early. I'm a nurse in Australia. If there's only an 8-hour gap between shifts I score double time. Throw that in on a Sunday, I'm very happily making triple time. I gotta look after my dog Simon, so can't stay late. No is a complete sentence. Legitimate reason. I don't want to. I'm not coming in. I'm not staying late. That's all you need. Boundaries, people. Boundaries. Better pro tip: just say no. You don't owe your employer a reason. Just work hard, do your job, and quit at quitting time. At my old job, pretty much everyone with kids left between 3-4 p.m. We work till 5 multiple times a week for any number of useless excuses like practice, but everyone sure knew the 25-year-old didn't have kids, so what else did I need to do but work? I can't stay after on weekdays because I have to take my son to school. I'll usually volunteer to stay a little later on weekends if they need me. I set boundaries so that expectations for attendance aren't high. I think that most employers are okay with most people's attendance requirements if you're a solid worker and asset to your team. In my opinion, IT is the worst offender. System uptime must be 24/7. I wish I could help you and make an excuse, but I got to leave at 5 p.m., as I have a religious thing at 5:30 p.m. I don't in this sort of thing. I feel like it's from toxic American workplaces. I finish at the time I stop being paid to be there, and I do not need any reason to leave at the end of my shift other than the fact I'm not longer contractually obliged to be there. Why would you make up an excuse? Just say it like it is. My legitimate reason is that my labor costs money, and if you're not paying me for it, you're not getting it. Just like I don't expect you to pay me outside of the agreement, I don't expect to pay you in labor outside of it either. Honestly, if this is a concern, keep putting out resumes and looking for a new job until you find somewhere that respects you. You shouldn't have to lie to avoid having a proper work-life balance. I always simply say no. If they ask why, I'll tell them I respect my own time. Because I don't get paid beyond 9/5. That's all. I would even go so far as to say if you're gay or otherwise happily child-free, establish that you have children. Lie. Send photos of your nieces, nephews, second cousins once removed. So many employers will shamelessly judge your free time as less valuable than the free time of people with kids. Maybe it's because I'm salaried at a tech company, but other than 1 or 2 weeks a month, I'm able to do whatever I want throughout the day without issue. No one cares as long as I get my stuff in on time, and the reason those 1 or 2 weeks a month are long hour filled is because those are when the deliverables are due. After I went part-time, I'm out of there after 5 hours. They can keep me 15 minutes max, then I walk. It's nice being in a union. I mean, they can ask, they can beg, but if I really can't stay late, I just won't stay late. Man shrugging. I can't work late early because it's too early to work late, but I can work late later if I know earlier. You don't have to have a reason at all.